Welcome to Building Kansas City. I'm Doug Wilder, your host, bringing you weekly stories from entrepreneurs, leaders shaping Kansas City. Whether you're established or just starting out, there's something here for everyone. Let's build KC together. Okay, welcome to another episode of Building Kansas City. I'm here with Kate Marshall, founder and president of the Plaza District Council. Appreciate you coming in today, Kate.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is just basically just a conversation back and forth, and we just meet with people and talk with people about some of the stuff that we do in Kansas City. So my first question, though, is I would like to kind of enlighten me about your experience at Vassar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I was a college kid.
Yeah?
Is anything in particular? I was an art history major. I spent, I grew up in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I went to an independent school in New York for 13 years, and Vassar was sort of an extension of that. It had already gone co-ed, which a lot of people don't realize or remember, but it went co-ed in 1968, so it was a legitimately coeducational institution. Small campus, small school, lots of fun. I spent a year abroad in Italy,
Fun.
which kind of helped me decide that art history and languages, I studied Italian and French and Spanish and German, because I love languages and I love travel.
Are you fluent in those languages still?
Italian and French, yes, because I lived abroad. After Vassar, I somewhat circuitously ended up moving to Monte Carlo.
Oh, nice.
In Monaco, and I opened a branch office for Shearson, which had just recently acquired Robinson Humphrey, which was the firm I'd been with.
So living abroad and living in that world, the language is easier to pick up or easier to extend on what you've been taught?
I'm fortunate because I think I have an ear for languages, and I had been studying French from the third grade. So by the time I was living and working over there, I was already pretty fluent in French. I started Italian in college, and I really picked up a lot more of my Italian by being immersed in the culture and in the Italian-speaking communities, because both Monaco and Italy, Monaco is actually 20 minutes from the Italian border, and there were a lot of the folks that did the cabinet work came over from Italy. The workmen, the craftsmen, the people who made our space beautiful, because we built out a new office, and I was typically working with them in Italian, and the finance folks were more likely to be on the French side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, very, very proud of their craftsmen and their artisans, and
Beautiful.
Great culture.
But they took, probably is not atypical of a work site. There are 3 or 4 people standing around watching one person do all the work. I thought that was typically Italian. Now I think it's just typical.
Just typical, right? So German, that's a tough language.
Ja, ich kann Deutsch sprechen, but not very well. It's a really tough language.
Yeah.
And I just that was like having one more before they say, the bar's closing. I said, okay, quick, I'm going to take intensive German my senior year. And so I'd have just enough to get into trouble.
Yeah, my wife and I have been to Germany, so she has spoken the language, but trying to learn that at my age now it was tough.
Yeah, it is.
But I think being in the culture I would pick it up a little bit better than from an app or a book or a class, for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the harder languages, in spite of the fact that English is a Germanic language. So.
Yeah. So Kansas City. You're the president of Plaza City Council, or the District Council. Let's talk about that. A lot of buzz around the plaza right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a headline getter these days.
Yeah.
But I had this idea back in 22 because we were approaching the Plaza Centennial, and I thought, gosh, somebody ought to be doing something to celebrate the century on the plaza. And I reached out to the people who were the owners of the plaza at the time, and they said, nope, we're not interested. I thought that was kind of surprising. And I talked to stakeholders and neighbors and people around the community, and everybody was like, yeah, something needs to be done here for the plaza. It's beginning to lose its luster. And I thought, that's not possible. And I think, quite honestly, that, the city had sort of taken its eye off the plaza, and the frustrations that City Hall had been having with the then owners was just getting nobody anywhere. And there were safety issues, and there were plenty of reasons why folks weren't getting along with the then owner, but they weren't interested in a neighborhood organization that would have some input. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah. So and then that wasn't sufficiently discouraging. We said, never mind, we'll just plunge ahead, and started pulling together stakeholders and seeing what we could do around the concept of an entire district. Because what people may not realize is that when the Nichols family sold the plaza in 1998, that was really the last time that one single overarching group or family or organization looked out for kind of everything around the Plaza District. Because you may remember that the Nichols family, J.C. Nichols, built what is now the Intercontinental Hotel, and his son built what is now the Alameda high-rise. And they also built the Sulgrave and the Regency, which are the two high-rises you see when you're looking south from the Horse Fountain. Those were rental properties. They developed Sunset Hill. They developed a lot of the residential and business area immediately surrounding the plaza. So without the Nichols family and the Nichols company's vigilance and care, it had become, much more fractured. And one of the things that the Plaza District Council hopes to do is bring back that cohesive view of the whole Plaza District and bring together a voice that is more impactful, because it's a communal voice for what could happen on the plaza and in the Plaza District.
So I'm a transplant as well from Omaha. So the Nichols family sold it to what then, an investment group, or at that particular time?
The Nichols family sold it to a company called Highwoods Properties, which was, I think, a North Carolina concern that had a lot of interest in office buildings and didn't know a whole lot about shopping centers. They sold it in 2016 to Taubman, which was later bought by Simon Property Group, which is a major international mall outfit. They own great big malls like Short Hills and Cherry Creek. Taubman did. So there was, and then Macerich was also involved in the ownership of it. So it was kind of a three-way ownership ultimately, and it was probably hard for them to be nimble and make the kind of decisions they needed to make. They also bought it at a very high price. They paid $660 million for it in 2016.
Wow.
Then they had to deal with Amazon and COVID and life and retail, and I think they never fully comprehended that they were dealing with an iconic historic property that happened to have some city streets running through it. And they were like, we have a mall that unfortunately has got streets running through it, and it doesn't work for us. It was a constant struggle. So then in October of 23, they defaulted on a $300 million loan, which was what really opened the doors. No, I think they defaulted earlier in the spring, and it was in October that we learned that Ray Washburn and his partner, Stephen Summers, the folks who run Highland Village, why am I having trouble saying Highland Village property down in Dallas, were very interested in purchasing the plaza. And so the next turned out to be 6 to 9 months were spent waiting for them to finalize their deal.
Wow. And so they're the current investors in it now?
Yes.
So backing up a little bit, what, you came here from New York?
Yeah.
And then did you just dive right into the plaza life and liked it and just started seeing what was going on down there?
When I first moved to Kansas City, I moved right to the plaza. I lived in a little building called the Cézanne Rousseau buildings, which were on the west side of the plaza, behind what is now an empty lot, but at the time it was the Bristol. It later became Capitol Grill. It was
Right.
The plaza in the 80s was walkable and wonderful. It had, a little French bakery called La Bonne Bouchée, which people will remember fondly. It had a Bruce Smith drugstore. It had a grocery store. It had all of the things you'd expect to find in a little local shopping center that was very much designed to meet the needs of the citizens that lived in the immediate proximity, because that was its initial concept. And as it sort of grew and changed, and in its latest iterations, it sort of lost a lot of that because it hasn't had the economic viability to support those smaller stores. Everything's changed in retail, I'm sure, as you know. But what's interesting about the shopping center is it's like 2.5 miles of storefront. It's like going from the Plaza Hotel in New York City at 5th Avenue and 59th Street all the way down to the Empire State Building and back again. That's a lot of storefront.
Right.
That's a lot to fill. So the new owners, the company is called Village Collection out of Dallas, and their partners have a big big job to do.
Are they thinking of bringing back the local stuff like the grocery stores and some of that stuff that will?
Yeah, I think they're very much working on their merchandising plan now, working on a master development plan, working with the city, addressing initially the first things they have to address, which are infrastructure, deferred maintenance things. But I think ultimately their intention is to make some fabulous retail opportunities available to people and have some more approachable shops. They want very much to focus on local stores and local restaurants and unique
Yeah, I love
shopping experiences. The ones that if you live out in the burbs and you have, a Shake Shack or a P.F. Chang or a cheesecake right by you, why would you drive all the way down to the plaza?
Sure.
You wouldn't just to go to those stores. You'd have to have a different destination to make it worth coming to the plaza.
Well, also people from out of town. I know coming from Omaha, trips to Kansas City, everybody hit the plaza every time we came down. So it's a big draw for people coming in from out of town.
It's a huge draw. Fully half of the people who come, particularly on things like Chiefs weekends and when there are big events in town, are from out of town, from Iowa, from the surrounding states. It's really one of the single biggest tourist draws, if you will, for the whole Kansas City area.
I can believe it. It seems, Power and Light obviously for the young kids, but the plaza seems to be for the families and the older generations.
But I should be sure to quickly assert that the Plaza District is about a lot more than the shopping center, which is 15 retail blocks right in the heart of it. But we go from State Line all the way to the Paseo and from 43rd to 55th. So in fact, we include all the cultural institutions like the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art, the Nelson Atkins Museum, the Kansas City Art Institute, which is a 130-year-old institution, the Stowers Institute of Medical Research and MRI Global, Kauffman Foundation, the Anita Gorman Conservation Discovery Place. There's just so many other resources that are cultural. Then we've got UMKC, Rockhurst, St. Luke's Hospital, and the nursing school. So it's an educational district. It's a cultural district. It's a lot more than the shopping district that everybody thinks of first off. I mean, when you're coming in from Omaha, you're like, I'm going to the plaza. But you don't realize that you're a block and a half from a world-class museum because the museum's right there.
It is right there.
Yeah.
So when you first started this council, obviously you said the previous owner was not really into it. So has that developed into a good relationship with the new investment group?
Yeah, absolutely. We've really worked hard to cultivate a understanding of mutual respect because we're not uniquely for this particular owner or against him in any possible way. We just want to try to facilitate the improvement of the area overall. So if there are ways that, like we just had a very, I think, informative breakfast with the new general manager last week. Had over 150 people show up, standing room only. People are interested to hear what's going on. And
there is a buzz about it. There's some excitement.
Yeah, we're very, very pleased. I think these guys have a ton of integrity. I think their hearts are in the right place. I think they know what they're doing. They've had tremendous success with Highland Village in Dallas, with a lot of other properties. I think Kansas City is extremely fortunate that they've stepped in and were willing to take this on because it's a big project. Security is always a big concern because you do hear about stuff like that. They have just announced the hiring of Metro Public Safety and Investigations. It's a great security outfit that's going to bring Class A security services that include officers who can carry guns and can detain the folks who are, up to no good on the plaza. And that happens more than we'd like. It happens all over the city.
Sure.
But we want to make sure that when people come to the plaza, they feel like they're in a beautiful, safe environment. And that's really important. And so we're incredibly grateful that this new owner has decided to really take safety and security as a number one priority and really step up, put a lot of money behind it and a lot of commitment to making sure it's safe.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
What parking? Has that been a discussion?
What about it?
I mean, is it, do they feel like there's enough?
There are so many parking places in and around the plaza, but people, because we're from Kansas City, think you should park on the street, right in front of the store you're going to walk into. And there's really only one or two spaces that work for most people. But to tell them that right at the end of the block, there is a building that will serve 100 people
Yeah.
doesn't seem to interest folks. But there's plenty of parking, and it's all free to the parking people. It's public parking. There is that misunderstanding that free parking is free. It actually costs all of us something because the taxes that
Sure.
provided either the parking structure or the streets that are, that you're going to leave your car on cost something to somebody.
I've never had any problem with parking down there, so and it's all about whether I park at one end or the other. I'm walking the whole length of the plaza anyway, so
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to walk.
yeah.
But we also have parking structures that accommodate a lot more cars. So, and all of them fill up for the art fair. They all fill up for the, turning on of the lights. And we're going to have the plaza folks are putting on a spring stroll, I think they're calling it. It's going to have dozens and dozens of retail in an outside setting and do a kind of a festival fair thing, and it's April 12th. So that'll be fun, and another good reason to come down to the plaza in the springtime. The bunnies are out.
Yeah.
That's fun too.
So I'm fascinated, but so you moved to the plaza, you decided to start this council. Was this just something that you had experience with in the past from?
Well, there are about 35 years between the two parts of your sentence.
Okay.
I moved to the plaza.
Then what did you do?
Oh,
Yes.
I've spent
Give me a career path.
most of my professional life here in Kansas City. I've been in the fundraising world. I started out with a great opportunity as the first executive director of the Hellsberg Foundation, the Shirley and Barnett Hellsberg Foundation, and this was way back, like in early '90s. So I'm dating myself, but that was a tremendous opportunity to learn from Barnett Hellsberg and Shirley Hellsberg, who are two of Kansas City's, greatest talents and philanthropists and just hugely civic-minded people. From there, I went on to, that was a grant-making opportunity. Then I moved over to the grant-seeking opportunity. I worked for a couple of nonprofits, one out in Paola, Kansas, which served children with developmental disabilities. And in my last role, I was the director of the foundations at St. Mary's and St. Joe Hospital for Carondelet Health. And then it was about time to circle the wagons and get my 3 kids off to college because I was single parenting 3 children. And I was like, I think I'm going to need to do some consulting because this is a lot. I've raised 3 terrific kids in the middle of all that, which has been probably my biggest joy and my greatest accomplishment. But then I started working as it's called a destination consultant, or working with people who are relocating to a place. And that really brought out my kind of being a champion for Kansas City, working with, an executive coming in to work at Ford or GM or Cerner or Honeywell. They're sometimes coming from China, or we got a lot of folks coming in to work for Amazon because Amazon kept building new fulfillment centers. A lot of the British folks who were coming in to run Lint's new acquisition called Russell Stover. So there was a lot of opportunities to work with people who were not familiar with Kansas City, some domestic, some international. And I really, by telling the story and then looking at through their lens, saw this is such an amazing place to live and work and raise a family or have a career. We're just super fortunate. And there's so many different little pockets of places you can live in Kansas City. They're all so different. Lee Summit is nothing like Overland Park, which is nothing like living down in River Market, which is really different if you want the Northland experience. And just kind of realizing that Kansas City offers so much variety. You're a cyclist? Oh, let me get you out near the Tomahawk Creek path. There was that kind of thing. And it was just really a fun way to get to know the city. And from that, I also was working with a lot of people who were looking for temporary housing. And not by temporary, I mean they were renting. So I really learned the multifamily communities and what parts of town were really growing up in their multifamily housing opportunities. And then living in South Plaza, which I moved to after the kids were all grown and flown, I went off and got involved with the South Plaza Neighborhood Association, which is like all the other neighborhood associations in Kansas City, just a volunteer-run, volunteer-led neighborhood association. And that's really what got my feet wet in the world of civic engagement and understanding how the city's run and how things get done and what it takes to fix the crack in your sidewalk.
Yeah. Do you, just a quick fundraising question. It feels like a difficult task, obviously, to ask people for money. Did you find that challenging?
There are people that absolutely hate doing it or won't do it or can't imagine how to do it. For some reason, I've always felt like it gave me an opportunity to be an instrument of something greater. So, for example, I could say to people who I might be soliciting to write a check to the hospital, you can't perform open heart surgery, but you can help provide the funding that allows us to have the right kind of equipment that gives these doctors a chance to actually do that work effectively. And in that way, you get to be an instrument of that healing, and I'm just the messenger. And it wasn't, if I believe in something, it's not hard for me to share
Not that
that.
hard, yeah.
Yeah.
Just passionate about it.
Yeah. In fact, when I first moved to Kansas City, I was still in the brokerage industry because remember I came from Shearson and I came here and I worked at Hutton, and I was looking at where am I going with this career? I was looking around the office and I could see that the people who were making money were the people who were selling stocks and bonds. They were brokers. They were salespeople, and I thought, oh, I'm not a salesperson. And then I thought, maybe I could be a salesperson if I really believed in what I was selling, if I was passionate about it, and if it felt like. So then I got to thinking, well, what do I really care about? And up until that point, because again, I was fairly young, I had realized that one of the most impactful experiences I had had as a young person was the opportunity to go abroad when I was in high school and live with a family and learn how to speak French and really immerse myself in another culture and come back home with this completely new view of everything, home, the world, life, countries, America, et cetera. And so I said I could volunteer for that. It was a nonprofit organization. I said I could help recruit kids who would, get this great opportunity. So they said, great, when we have our new Midwest Regional Director, we'll put them in touch with you. And I said, wait, what? Can I apply for that? Can I be the new Midwest Regional Director? So that's how I got into nonprofit work. And that's how I realized, oh no, I can actually sell. I can sell something that I really feel passionate about. And that was a real kind of turning point in my understanding who I am and how I can function. And being a fundraiser, it's really just more of that. If you can sell cabinets, you can probably convince somebody to underwrite something that you care deeply about.
I find as my career has advanced, I feel that, yeah, you're exactly right. The more passionate, it's like I'm not selling anything. I'm just talking about what I believe in, and it's generally pretty easy just to have that conversation. So, yeah, I can certainly understand that.
Yeah.
A world I'm not in, of course, fundraising, so it always seems when I hear people talk about it that it seems like a very daunting, possibility.
Well, it's
a
not
lot of
any
rejection and
it's not any different than asking for money to get, to capitalize your business, or, you need 3 more trucks, and how you're going to make that happen.
yeah.
But you have to, it's frankly, it's all sales without that being a dirty word. It's not, it's
Which
all,
is relationships.
yeah, it's communication.
Sure.
It's trust. And
Also, to that point, I think the world travelers that I've met obviously have a really better outtake on life and humans and cultures, and a little bit more well-rounded, and kind of see things a little bit differently.
there's nothing wrong with broadening your perspective.
No, not at all. So, the council, how many people make up the council today?
So we are a nonprofit organization. I have 2 staff people, and I have 10 board members. We've got memberships, which are the donors, and they're, it's sort of you could call them donors, you could call them members. They're the folks who are supporting the organization at this time. And that's because a lot of organizations like this, other cities, and in particular in Kansas City, there's the Downtown Council, another one called Midtown KC. Those are both organizations that are supported by something called a community improvement district. And the community improvement district, either through an assessment or through a sales tax, takes a little bit of tax from all the people in that particular area, and then creates a pool of funds that allows an organization like mine to do the work it does. We have not got a CID at this point. We haven't started that process. We're still very young. And we need to see, what's going to be the most effective and popular way for us to go about and say, hey, community, we have the opportunity to help get these things accomplished on all of our behalfs. Are we all willing to chip in 0.25% or something of something,
Sure.
some relatively negligible amount if everybody pays it, but together it makes an important amount of money that can support the work that an organization like ours does. In the meantime, we're supported by charitable contributions.
Are you guys now with the new ownership having regular meetings and have input or guidance, I guess you would say?
Yeah, I have. Remember, we're 3 square miles.
Sure.
So the shopping center is one of my stakeholders. So is the museums and the university and the hospital and the hotels. So I have regular input with all of those folks. But yes, the opportunities to touch base with people in the Plaza Management Office are also abundant. They're all doors are open. So we just are helping each other as we try to kind of get one big vision. I mean, the other really significant thing that's happening in the Plaza District, we've got 3 new streetcar stops that are about to open in 6 months or less. Gosh, what month are we in? Yeah, very soon, like the end of the summer. There's going to be one down at UMKC. There's going to be one right at the plaza, right across from the tennis courts, and another one up by the museums. And those are 3 of the whole run that's coming down from Union Station all the way down to UMKC.
Does it stop there at the plaza and then go back north? Is that the end of the route?
No, the terminus is UMKC.
Okay.
So there's as it's coming down the hill, there's the American Century Towers and the Marriott. So there's a stop there, and that'll allow people to walk over to the museums. And then the next stop is Winstead's, and then the next stop is by UMKC.
Oh, nice.
And that's the last stop.
And
So
that reverses and goes all the way to the river
then
market?
turn around and go all the way down the riverfront.
Riverfront.
Yeah, because the other extension goes from River Market all the way to the new stadium.
Oh, it's going to be exciting.
It's ridiculous. It's so fabulous.
Yeah.
And, that's going to add, I've heard estimates along the lines of 7,000 to 10,000 daily riders that have not up until now found their way all the way to UMKC or the plaza.
Yeah.
So, that's a huge piece of the work that we want to do as the PDC, charting this new century for the plaza and the surrounding area, is make the wayfinding functional and effective, welcoming, make sure that it's a community asset that welcomes all comers, even the folks from Omaha,
Yeah.
Tulsa, and Des Moines,
Yeah, Des Moines, yeah.
who don't necessarily know what they're coming to find, It's pretty exciting.
Is all the council groups that you mentioned in the surrounding areas, you guys get together as well?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be a good idea to collaborate, I would imagine.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of work like that happens. I attend, in fact, tomorrow morning I'll be attending the Midtown KC Now Coffee. I have monthly events, they have monthly events, downtown has, we're all trying to stay abreast of very similar issues and help each other where we can. It's collaborative.
Yeah, and I seen are you either hosting or is Zach Mulzer going to be on?
Okay, so that's a different organization.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm on that board. It's called KC Downtowners. They meet once a month for lunch. It serves a similar audience of folks who, it was founded over 25 years ago when downtown was really sad and kind of dark and lonely. And it was just folks who wanted to kind of bolster downtown. And so they'd get together for lunch and say, what's going on? What can we talk about? What's good? And it's developed into a pretty popular lunch series that gathers about 100 folks, a lot from the construction, architecture, design industries that come and hear. And Zach will be our keynote this coming Wednesday. What's today? It's a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, is it Tuesday or Wednesday today?
I think it's Tuesday. I've lost track.
Yeah, he's a super energetic guy.
He's tremendous, and it'll be a wonderfully entertaining presentation. And what he's doing with the Aladdin is really tremendous.
I'm really excited about that. I love
Yeah.
that somebody like that is taking on the older building and kind of kind of revamp it.
And it's really fun that he's doing it kind of open kimono, you know, because that's a thing that not every developer, not everybody wants to show you either how hard it is or how messy it is or how complicated it is. It's really exciting to see him do it. But, you know, he's young, so he, not unlike what happened when I took this on out of the blue, it's beginner's mind. You know, when you take something on with beginner's mind, there's no place to go but up. You're just like, oh, there's a discovery.
Well, it's crazy. When I visited with him, you know, to take on a project of that magnitude, you know, as young as he is and out of the gate, I mean, it's a daunting task. So,
well, that's why I make the parallel. People said, wait, Kate, you're going to create this organization for the Plaza District? Ooh, that's a big lift. Do you know what you're getting into? Do you understand the forces at work here? Do you understand the politics? Do you understand all of the issues you're going to be addressing? You've got big institutions, there's big egos, there's big stakeholders. You know, what are you, crazy? You don't think you, huh? And what kind of a background do you have? You know, there was sort of a lot of, how are you going to make this happen? I was like, I don't know, I'll just do the right next thing.
So speak to that, some of the opposition in the early days.
It wasn't that it was opposition. In fact, way more frequently I'd hear, wait, this doesn't already exist? It was more that sort of, it's just going to be a lot of work. You sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
Like, well, I'll find out.
And after all this time, it's definitely something you're proud of, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I've said, people would typically talk about a startup like this. It's a roller coaster, you know, those kind of metaphors. But for me, it's really felt like a gondola ride right to the top. We've gotten funding when we needed it. I've just hired 2 fabulous people. I've got tremendous board members. People say yes. Funders say yes. Stakeholders say yes. People show up at our coffees. You know, we're just always ready to take on the next opportunity because we've got a lot of goodwill behind us. The city has been tremendously responsive. I've, you know, got relationships with the mayor, the city manager, the head of city planning, the people in long-term planning and the city planner's offices, the people in the public works department, the folks managing parking and sidewalks and major transportation issues. You know, there's the director of the streetcar. I mean, I can connect with all of these folks now because of a couple, 3 years of sort of groundwork of getting to know who matters, who needs to be into this conversation, who do I need to connect with to get that thing done. Those are all really critical relationships to make things happen in the city. And then, of course, getting to know the council members and understanding what they care about and, you know, what we can do to help them and vice versa. So it's really just about building relationships, like you said, creating that kind of goodwill and being willing to be collaborative and helpful.
Do you feel do you feel like I was going to ask you about putting all this stuff together? When you look back, when you first got to KC, I'm fairly new here, so was those districts, when we talk about safety, were they a little bit out of control at one particular point?
I think if you kind of ask around, particularly out here in Johnson County, folks will say, oh, I don't want to go to the plaza anymore. Either they'll cite what they think is, you know, sometimes a lot of young people show up on the plaza on a hot summer evening. That feels intimidating.
It feels like energy to me.
Exactly. Well, that's why. Well, we're moving that conversation. We're shifting the whole experience.
It's certainly not going to be me creating all that energy.
Right.
An old guy, I love the energy that the youth brings.
So there has been a sense that you know, there's no more or less crime or you know, unfortunate situations on the plaza than there are in other parts of town, whether it's the other entertainment districts like Westport or downtown. But there's sort of a general feeling that the plaza is sacrosanct, and it's sort of this frozen in time moment that we had with our grandparents shopping at Hartsfeld, or when I, you know, proposed to my wife on the Sister City Bridge, or, you know, the memories that people have are so strong, and then they want it sort of locked in time like that, and the plaza needs to keep moving like everything else. So sometimes there's a little resistance to change. I guess I could say there's always a lot of resistance
Always.
to change.
Well, I feel like most people in any city are reluctant to go downtown where the bulk of the people are and always claim that it's unsafe. And
Yeah.
in fact, it's largely very safe.
Right. It's either unsafe or it's impossible to park, and those are both not true.
I mean, yeah, I'm always amazed. So my wife and I love to hit different pockets of Kansas City and find unique places to eat or to visit. So when we leave, this area and the burbs and everything, people are like, you went where to eat? Like, you drove all that way to go eat? And I'm like, well, yes, we try to go experience some of the city. So I'm always amazed at how, people stay by their, just within a mile of their house. Like, they really need to get out and experience the city.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason you live in a wonderful city
Yeah.
like Kansas City. It's a tremendous, I mean, from the West Bottoms, which is an extraordinarily different and exciting experience from an old city becoming new again. The really cool bridge over the Kansas River that's probably going to open in the next year. That's a really cool concept. That's a first ever in the country with an entertainment zone on top of it. There's so many really cool endeavors that Kansas City just keeps on keeping on.
Yeah, I think that's going to be amazing. Well, that area has so much potential.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be really cool down there.
it will be.
Are you aware of developers that are really kind of hitting those old factory buildings down there pretty hard? Or are they looking more and more to develop?
Well, there's an entire West
Most
Bottom
of-
development project
Yep.
taken on by Samara Roads, and that's
Awesome.
already underway.
Good.
Yeah, that's tremendous.
I think that's a great area. The buildings are great. I love to see that stuff revitalized.
Yeah.
So what's next for you in the council? Let me just back up just a little bit. Your day-to-day is immersed in connections for the council, and what's the day-to-day look like for you, Kate?
Well, we put on monthly events. There's the communicating effectively with our constituents and the stakeholders. There's engaging with the city on behalf of the needs and the concerns of our community. So there's the initiatives. There's applying for grants to fix things like the no longer ADA accessible sidewalks on the Warnell Bridge, and then managing the grant money that comes in and making sure that work is done timely and effectively. And then there's reaching beyond that. What our really big, hairy, audacious goal is to work on Brush Creek, because Brush Creek is an extraordinary asset for the community. It's beautiful, and it's capable of being such a boon to businesses and recreation and families that live near it. But at the moment, the water is quite toxic. It's regularly strewn with trash. It's an asset that's managed by the Parks Department, which is underfunded. And there's just a lot of ways that it's challenged. So when we really get ourselves all geared up and ready to take it on, we really want to make a big difference with Brush Creek. And we know that Brush Creek is a 25-year, kind of project. It's not something that we're going to turn around tomorrow, and we're not going to be able to make any kind of real difference without hundreds of millions of dollars. But that's in the same vein of what we were talking about. People go, "Oh, Kate, that's a big lift." Well, somebody's got to do it.
Well, I would assume after all this time that the big lift isn't intimidating to you. Really confident with what you're going to be doing moving forward.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Well,
Yeah.
one day at a
Yeah,
time.
good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so help me out with my ignorance. As I'm new to Kansas City and still learning the city itself and the history, there is a little area just east of the plaza that looks to me like it might have been some old military housing. Was that particular area something to do with the military or a fort? Or it looked like it might be, let's say, even south of the museum there. The houses look more like barracks.
Oh, I think you're talking about some really extraordinary they're by the Kaufman
Yes.
Garden.
Yes.
Those were the caretakers' houses for the publisher, William Rockhill Nelson, who's the publisher of the Kansas City Star, whose bequest gave rise to the Nelson Atkins Museum.
Oh, fascinating.
And those little houses were actually places that I think people who worked on the property got to live.
But they are single-family residents now?
Yes.
Yeah. I love the
Yeah,
architecture of those
they're
places.
quite special.
Yeah, they are very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love driving through any city and just checking out the architecture of what used to be.
Well, you should go back to the Kaufman Garden. I was there this weekend. It is ablaze with tulips
Oh, we
and
will do that.
quince, and the red buds are, you can see the red buds here and all the flowering trees, but they plant along the sort of reflection pool with the three beautiful Tom Corbin dancing statues. It's really quite spectacular, and it's something new and beautiful to see is blooming every single weekend. So if you get up that way to admire the architecture, admire,
Sure,
admire
absolutely.
the growing things too.
Well, I just noticed last weekend as we were driving around, my wife and I, the blooming trees were just in full bloom last weekend. I didn't remember it being so heavy last spring. Either I wasn't paying attention or.
I think this is a pretty rich spring. The pear trees are very full.
Yeah.
The red buds are extraordinary. What part of town do you live in?
Well, I just live here in Lenexa currently. When we first moved here, we were trying to relocate, obviously, and being close to work was important. And what I initially did was, my move to Kansas City was pretty stunning through my office. So I was traveling down once a week, staying the week, and then going home on the weekends. We just started a remodel on our house, so we weren't able to put it up for sale. So through that 6 months, I decided instead of just staying at the same hotel, right here close by, I just stayed in a different Airbnb every week.
Oh, good.
In different parts
You
of
got
the
a
city.
different sense of the city.
So I was all over. I would be down in a condo in the Crossroads. I would be way south in suburbia. I would be in Brookside, and so not only did it help me learn the city very quickly,
Very smart.
what areas were very cool to be around, what was walkable, what restaurants were close by, what the commute was like. So I had a lot of fun doing that, and got to learn the city pretty quickly. So when it ended up buying a house, it was mostly right at this particular time was going to be the commute.
Yeah.
I really love the Brookside area. It's kind of what we lived in Omaha, that sort of architecture and neighborhood, that timepiece. But being close to work was what we really needed to be at this time. But
Did you have kids to put in schools?
we were empty nesters, luckily at the time. So all of our kids are grown and gone, and so that was not as hard to make the move. So, but yeah, the Airbnb. So I'm glad I did that because it really helped me learn Kansas City and what was going on around the whole city. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear you still get out. Have you been to the Steamboat Arabia?
I have not been there.
Oh my God, it's one of my favorite museums. It's down in the River Market.
Steamboat
Arabia, and it tells a wonderfully, I think, romantic story about some basically HVAC guys and large construction equipment guys who had a dream to find buried treasure.
Oh wow!
And they end up finding a steamboat that had foundered and had settled, and the river had changed course, so they dug it up out of the middle of a cornfield that's right near Riverside, right near the River Market, and they dug this thing up, and they discovered that they'd suddenly become historians and archaeologists and museum directors. I mean, they turned this into an extraordinary museum. That it's a little bit like if a truck headed up the highway to fill the next Home Depot fell over on its side and then got buried in the mud and got pulled up a century later, because it's all the locks and pulls and pieces of panes of glass and the shoes and the leather and it's fascinating, and it's this little quick view into what life was like in the 1880s for all the folks who were homesteading up the Missouri River. Steamboat Arabia.
And I've got to talk to the people that, and you probably are more connected with this, that are looking to raise funds to redo Satchel Paige's house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where they're at with that particular project at the moment, but certainly one I've asked to be part of as far as not just with what we do here, but me personally being an ex-carpenter, past carpenter, that it would be a lot of fun to work on a project like that.
Yeah, I just keep knocking on their door because I'm sure they're welcoming the help.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they're moving along with that project from what I've heard.
Oh, that's good.
I haven't heard the latest on it recently, but I think that is something that they're caring about.
Something I'll touch base with again. So I ask everybody during our close of something you've learned from a failure.
Oh. I guess I'm thinking sort of tritely, you just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
There's, it's the best way to learn from your mistakes and gives you an opportunity to do it better the next time.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for visiting with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank
Sounds
you
like
for
a lot
this
of good things are
opportunity.
coming our way in Kansas City.
Yeah, we have nothing but blue sky. Good things to look forward to.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Doug.
Thanks for joining us on Building Kansas City. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, or Apple podcast and share it. Until next time, keep building Kansas City. Take care.